Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Lucy.
I'm Zara. Lucy, it was tough pickings who to pick in the office to do this podcast today. But look, I settled on you because you are a genuine movie expert. I've actually never met anyone who is as well versed in movies, let alone Oscars movies, as you are. So for someone perhaps not as well established in the Oscar movie scene as you, why did the Oscars matter? Why do we need to talk about it on today's podcast?
Well, what I always say when people ask me why things like the movies matter is that this is an industry. This is a major economy, particularly in the US, but certainly in Australia as well.
Yeah.
When the writers and actors went on strike 18 months ago, I told people this is an industrial issue. That's why we should care.
Yeah.
So aside from the fact that I care about movies, I love watching movies, I love seeing all the things that are nominated for Oscars, as many as I can get to, but also this is an industry awards show and it's interesting to see what the people in that industry think was the best, beyond what I think is the best as just a fan. So the Oscars are Hollywood's biggest night. That's what they're described as. And they're an industry award, just like the Grammys are for music, or in Australia, the Arias or the Logies for Australian TV.
I think that's the first and last time the Oscars and the Logies will be compared to one another, but we'll go with it just for the sake of contextualizing.
But yeah, they're an industry award. We actually don't know why they're called the Oscars, which is a really fun fact. No one does. And given that they've been around for 97 years, anyone who could have told us is long gone.
How interesting.
There's a few different suggestions of why they're called that, but we don't know. Officially, they're called the Academy Awards because they're given out by the members of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Excellent.
Which I love. It's so old Hollywood, that name, talking about motion pictures.
Yeah, it really is. It stands the test of time, though. I'm curious how the voting works when it comes to the Oscars, because often people will watch this and be like, how did that possibly win? And there is good reason and an entire process behind it. Talk me through the voting process.
So as I said before, they're voted on by the members of the Academy.
Yeah.
I think it's probably best to explain through the process of voting for an actor.
Okay.
So if you are an actor and you want to be nominated for an acting Oscar, you need to appear in a film that is released within January 1st to December 31st of the year before the ceremony. And that also needs to be a film that is released for at least a week in one of a few major US cities.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's very specific requirements around, even to the degree of at least one of the screenings in the week that it plays needs to be in the evening.
Okay.
It's all very granular.
Well, and will movies be released accordingly? Like, is this thought about in the production and the release plan for a movie? I presume so.
Yes, definitely. It's why you will see a huge group of very serious dramas all be released around December, right before the proper voting process begins.
Okay, interesting.
But then it can also be kind of done in an interesting way where something might premiere at a film festival, which doesn't meet that requirement, in, say, late 2023, then do its week of required screenings in July 2024, and then be nominated for an Oscar at the 2025 Oscars. The film I'm thinking of is Sing Sing, which stars Coleman Domingo, who's nominated for Best Actor. That's that movie's exact process. It first was shown to audiences in September 2023. It's now March 2025, which kind of shows you the journey.
Okay, and so there are these very strict requirements of a film to even be eligible to be nominated. Who then, though, gets to vote? How do members of the Academy become members of the Academy?
There's about 10,000 of them.
Oh,
yeah. There used to be many fewer, but
I had like
years
10
ago,
in my brain there.
No,
Okay.
it's because you have to think about how big Hollywood is as an industry. And part of what makes up that 10,000 is that it's not just actors, it's not just directors, it's makeup artists, hairstylists, costume designers, sound technicians. When you think about in a movie, when they show you we're filming a movie, there's a million people on set. Chances are most of those people are voting members of the Academy.
Okay, gotcha.
So you get invited, you have to be sponsored by other existing members, and you have to be in the industry. So as much as I might like to be in the Academy, if I somehow got Kate Blanchett and Nicole Kidman to say Lucy Tassell should be in the Academy. I'm still not actually in Hollywood, so I wouldn't get accepted.
Yeah, but you could be a fact checker in Hollywood.
Maybe.
They might need some of them.
Maybe. I don't think there's a research branch. I'll tell you, there are 19 branches of the Academy.
Okay.
And in the early rounds of voting, they all vote in their specific category. So makeup artists vote for best makeup. But once the official nominations are finalised, everyone votes for everything.
And are votes weighted in any different way, or is everyone's vote equal?
Everyone's vote is equal in all the categories except for Best Picture, which when we get to the final nominations, Best Picture is ranked by preference.
Okay.
We never know the exact voting breakdowns as much as I would love to know them. If a film gets 50% of first preference votes for Best Picture, it automatically wins.
I'm obsessed with somehow feeling like we're talking about an election when we're talking about the Oscars.
And people treat it as seriously as a political election and spend as much money on it as a political election. And it lasts as long as the US election does sometimes.
Wow.
I mean, just as an example, the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Best Picture a couple of years ago, it premiered at the South by Southwest Festival in April, and then all of the actors in it were effectively on the campaign trail until the Oscars the subsequent March.
Wow.
It's a long process.
That is a long process.
Yeah.
You spoke about Best Picture there before, which is the big gong of the night. And I'm wondering if you can just run us through who the nominees are, or at least who people need to know when it comes to the nominees for this award.
So there's 10 nominees.
Yeah.
It used to be only 5. Then they expanded it probably 10 years ago. I would say the big ones that people probably have seen would be Wicked, which is technically Wicked Part 1, but it's just called Wicked.
Okay.
Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
There's Conclave, which is about popes.
Yeah.
There's Anora, which is about an exotic dancer who gets involved with a Russian oligarch's son. And then there's Amelia Perez, which you have probably heard of, probably not because you've seen it. It has come out in Australia, but not very widely. But because A, it's a fascinating film, and B, because it's generated a fair bit of controversy, I think it's safe to say.
Can you take me through some of that controversy?
So Amelia Perez is a film that is a musical. It is about a trans female gangster who asks a lawyer to help arrange for her to have gender-affirming surgery so that she can effectively become the woman she's always meant to be, change her identity, and leave the criminal life and all of the repercussions of that. It is very specifically a film set in Mexico about the role of drug cartels in Mexico. The initial controversy around this film was that this film about Mexico was shot in Paris, was written and directed by a French man. The songs were written by French people in Spanish, but written by French artists. And it stars 3 main actresses, a Spanish actress named Carla Sofia Gascon, she plays Amelia, Selena Gomez, who is from the US, and Zoe Saldaña, who is Dominican. So there was already kind of a bit of questioning around, can you really tell a story about an issue that really affects Mexico without necessarily having it be very grounded in Mexico? Originally, this movie premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France in May. It happens every May. It's extremely prestigious, and it can often be a good indicator of what the Oscar movies are going to be. So Parasite, which won Best Picture in 2020, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May 2019, and from there it was basically everyone thinks this is the best movie of the year.
Yeah.
Amelia Perez didn't win the top award at Cannes, but it did win acting awards, and it was received very warmly by the mainly French audience, although there was a lot of Hollywood people there too. Yeah. It also then picked up a lot of support from the Academy. It has the second most Oscar nominations in history with 13, tied with a number of other films, but still nominations in almost every key category that it was available to be nominated in, including Best Actress for Carla Sofia Gascon, which made her the first openly trans person to be nominated for an acting Oscar. But then things took a turn right around the time that those nominations were announced. Once the nominations are announced, everyone in the Academy can start voting officially. There's a short voting period. So that is kind of assumed that you would be catching up on the things that you haven't yet seen and making your final decisions about who you think should win each award.
And so what happened?
Around this time, a Canadian journalist named Sarah Hagee, who is a Black and Muslim woman, noticed a couple of social media posts by Gascon that she said...
Gascon being the lead actress in this film.
Yes, Exactly. The lead actress, the titular role, Amelia Perez. Hagee said these tweets were, quote, an Islamophobic dog whistle, her words, dog whistle. That's a subtle message that might seem innocent to some and very charged to others. When she started keyword searching these posts from Carla Sofia Gascon, she later told Variety magazine she found, quote, many racist and many anti-Muslim posts. She said, quote, this wasn't some viral controversy waiting to resurface. She had tweeted these things and they had existed online unchallenged from 2016 to 2023. There was no pushback, no visibility. This was just how she was casually tweeting. It was all just there. And she went on to say, I'm floored because we're talking about a frontrunner from one of the most nominated films in Academy history. It wasn't just about one comment.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of podcasts about this and the role of those involved in, casting and in the film and perhaps some of the research that did or didn't happen when it went into the casting of this film. I'm curious to understand what the reaction has been, though, since these tweets surfaced and, the nominations still stand.
Certainly. Just before we get into the blowback, I will also just note these tweets are all in Spanish because Gascon is from Spain. Yeah. The film has been picked up for US distribution by Netflix, which is a US company. That may go some way to suggest why these tweets never came to anyone's attention before.
Yeah, interesting.
In terms of the blowback, it was immediate and widespread. Netflix, as I mentioned before, kind of quite involved in this film's Oscar campaign, said that it would no longer pay for her to be flown to different awards events that the film was nominated for or pay for any of her styling.
Which you said, and that's important because you were saying before it's like an election campaign, like being on, we'll call it the campaign trail.
Well, yeah.
Like that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Going to events like the Screen Actors Guild Awards, which Gascon did not attend, but Saldaña and Gomez did. There's a huge number of events that would be in the lead up that Gascon has not been at. Yeah. She is expected to attend the actual ceremony today. Saldaña also distanced herself from her, as did Gascon's PR agency. Again, just another aspect of this kind of campaign. So I think overall it's safe to say this is kind of the major storyline of the lead up to the Oscars this year, and it has certainly damaged the film's chances.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen what it will win today.
I want to turn now to talk about the Aussies who are nominated. Firstly, are there Aussies who are nominated? Secondly, who are they?
It's a great showing for Australia this year.
Oh, brilliant. We love that.
First up, we've got Guy Pearce with his first ever Oscar nomination for his role in the film The Brutalist, where he plays a volatile millionaire who commissions an architect to build a building on his property. Then we've got cinematographer Greg Fraser, already an Oscar winner for his work on Dune Part 1, nominated again for Dune Part 2. I think he's in with a strong chance. Then, over in the animated feature category, we've got Adam Elliott and Liz Carney for their film Memoir of a Snail. Elliott won in the 2000s for an animated short, but Carney has never won. So that's two Aussies in that category. And Aussies were on the teams of 3 of the 5 movies nominated for Best Visual Effects, which I think is really cool to see and like an affirmation of the quality of our VFX industry.
So cool.
And then finally, there's Maher, who produced a nominated documentary short about a man in Texas on death row.
You mentioned just before that it's Guy Pearce's first nomination. Oftentimes when we look at these award shows, something that comes out is the number of firsts that may or may not eventuate. What are some of the firsts that you're keeping a keen eye out for?
This is an exciting year of firsts because, as you say, there's firsts every year.
Yeah.
But this year there's a couple of people who've had really long and rich careers who are just now getting recognised. So just like I said, Guy Pearce. Yep. There's also Demi Moore. Yep. Her first screen appearance was in 1981 and she has just now been nominated for the first time for her performance in The Substance. Then we've also got Isabella Rossellini, who is Hollywood royalty. Her mother, Ingrid Bergman, won 3 acting Oscars. Her father, Roberto Rossellini, an incredibly influential Italian director. She's been nominated for the first time for her role in Conclave, playing a scheming nun. We've also got Kieran Culkin, who obviously we know.
GOAT, best of all time.
Has been around forever.
Yep.
Everyone, I'm sure, listening can picture him as a child eating pizza in Home Alone, just now nominated for his role in A Real Pain. There's a couple of other possible firsts I'll just quickly touch on. Timothée Chalamet has been nominated quite a few times. If he wins Best Actor for playing Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown, he'll be the youngest man to ever win the category.
Wow.
He's just turned 29. There are extremely...
Well, that makes the rest of us feel incredibly underachieving.
Yes, I love to not think about how old he is. There's very few Oscars gone to men under 30 over the years. The current holder of the record for the youngest Best Actor, Adrien Brody, also nominated in that category.
Also having quite the year.
For The Brutalist. So, and then, of course, the final first, if Carla Sofia Gascon does win, she will be the first openly trans person to win an acting Oscar. There's so much to look forward to finding out today. I'm so excited.
Lucy, you have made me care more about the Oscars than I ever have in my whole life, and I will be watching with great interest, so thank you for that. And thank you for joining us for another episode of The Daily Aus. We will be back again this afternoon with the day's headlines. Until then, have a great day.